In today's video, we continue our NHL GM Report Card series. Today, we complete the Eastern Conference and Metro Division by taking a look at the Philadelphia Flyers and grading the work of GM Danny Briere for the 24-hour offseason. We'll discuss all the moves and give our opinions coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we take a look at the Philadelphia Flyers and we give the GM report card to General Manager Danny Briere for his work of the 2024 NHL offseason. Of course, the Philadelphia Flyers last year had a better start to the season than many of us expected. They kind of tailed off as the year went along, ultimately finishing out of the playoffs, but certainly was a situation where, down the stretch, I think they kind of revealed that maybe they weren't quite as good as they thought. Maybe they weren't as deep. They ran into, like most teams, they have health and injury problems by that point. And certainly, I expected them to maybe make a little bit more moves this offseason. They were, not overly busy. We're going to take a look at any trades they made, signings internally, externally, and then look at how things have changed and kind of grade the work of GM Danny Briere. So first up, for trades, there really wasn't any per se. The only trade we really saw was at the draft, and it involves draft picks. And a lot of times we don't really get into those a whole heck of a lot, mainly because there's not a whole lot of details that we can really analyze. Sometimes they're for future prospects or picks in future drafts, and we don't know the outcome yet. But in this case, they traded pick 32. They were scheduled to pick in that last spot of the first round. They had multiple selections there, and they traded that pick to the Edmonton Oilers for a conditional pick in 2025, first rounder. So really, that's a pretty good deal. I'll give them credit there. I mean, obviously, if the Oilers end up being as strong and cup contender as a lot of people are predicting for the coming 24-25 season, that pick next year could end up being very similar. It could be right near the bottom of the first round. And if that's the case, it'll be, the pick will be forwarded to the Flyers. I'm surprised by the Oilers. I mean, I know they got themselves a prospect that they really like there, but I was like, really? It was that player that good that you had to have that player and not have a first rounder for next year? That first round pick for 25, I thought would be a great trade asset later in the season for the trade deadline. So from the Oilers' perspective, I thought it was, I wouldn't have done it. They better hope the prospect turns out. Otherwise, it's going to be a really bad deal. But for Philadelphia, okay, they saw an opportunity where there wasn't a player there they absolutely loved. They had already had, picks already. They already got Lushenko. Why not take a chance that next year's option might be better? It was low risk move. So I have no problem with that trade at all by Briere and the Flyers, and I'll give them credit for making themselves a decent deal. As far as signings go, externally, there really wasn't much happening. They've been a very quiet team. This team coming back is essentially the same group for the most part. I mean, if really there's really not a whole lot happening there. And internally, they signed Travis Konecny to a big deal, $70 million over 8 years, so 8.75. Don't absolutely love that deal. I honestly think Konecny is a really good player, but I honestly think it's a little bit too much. I don't know. I'd have no problem signing an 8-year deal. He's aged and everything's fine. Tough player to play against. I just thought 8.75 was a little bit more than what he should have gotten based on his track record. Good player, but I would have been more comfortable with maybe 7.75 or maybe 8 at most. It's not like a huge overpayment in my opinion, but it is a bit for sure. And I guess maybe they felt they had to do that. But considering that this team is, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, you could say it's a rebuild, and in a sense it is, but they still have some veterans around that, haven't been moved out. So every rebuild does keep some veteran guys around, but to take a veteran who's not going to really line up with your window to win, Konecny, and sign him for 8 years, I kind of wondered if they maybe should have moved him because they would have got a really good return. But at the end of the day, it's not a terrible contract, but it is a little bit much, in my opinion. They signed Zamula, 2 years, 1.7. Of course, Jet Lushenko, the first round pick this year, got a 3-year ELC. Bobby Brink, it's 2 years at 1.5, nothing too substantial there. They extend Garnet Hathaway 2 more years. He's 1 year left on his contract. He's eligible for an extension. They extend him out for 2 more years at $2.4 million. That's pretty much the same deal he's got now. I think it's just a very smidge more money. So, Hathaway's a pretty good fourth liner. He's a tough customer, not afraid to drop the gloves. He can be a good guy to have around to kind of protect the younger players and be a physical presence. So, no issues there. Erik Johnson comes back on a 1 year deal, $1 million. Adam Ginning signs 2 years at $787,500. Again, no problems there. Ivan Fedotov, of course, he had only got a handful of games. He signed early in the offseason for the Flyers. 2 year deal at $375,000. He only played a few games after coming over at the end of the year, and the results weren't really that good. So to give him that much money, thankfully it's only 2 years. And I know that they believe in this guy. They obviously have a lot of faith in him. But the early results didn't look great, so I was like, I don't know. I mean, I know with the 2018 World Junior sexual assault case, they lose Carter Hart. He's now gone. So, I mean, their goalie of the future and the present, gone for nothing. I mean, that's got to hurt, to lose Carter Hart through the season. And he was an RFA, not tendered a qualifying offer. None of the players because all the players in that case were still in the NHL, were all restricted free agents this summer. None of them with qualifying offers, so they're now all UFAs. And, so they're done with those clubs. It's unlikely they'll ever go back. I mean, if they are found innocent from the courts, then, they could resume playing. But hard to imagine them going back to their old teams. Anyway, but the Fedotov money, it's not a crazy long or big contract, but again, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, to me, $375 for a handful of games that didn't go well just seemed a little risky to me. Of course, they got Matvei Michkov to come over from Russia. That was a huge undertaking by Briere and staff there. So they get Matvei to come over, which is huge. He's going to play this year. He'd be a real exciting player. So they get him in the lineup a lot sooner than they ever imagined. And when he was first drafted last year, the thought was they'd probably have to wait at least 1, if not 2 more years. So to get him coming over now is a tremendous piece of work and business for the Flyers. But it's not all them. Obviously the team over there had to agree. That's him and his agent working to get to the NHL too. So, obviously it's a lot of involvement there from a lot of people, but they got it done, which is tremendous. So you got to give them a little bit of credit there. And that's all they're signing. So really, I think the Konechny and Fedotov contracts are too much. All the other ones are either ELCs for Michkov and Lashenko or bridge deals for Zamula, Brink, and Ginning. And then you've got Erik Johnson 1 year, veteran special there, and then the Hathaway extension. So not a lot of signings, and I have problems with 2 of them. Now, in terms of additions, subtractions, players going in and out, not really much of a segment here for the Flyers because there's really nothing new coming in. I mean, they decided to buy out the final year of Cam Atkinson. Of course, we know he had struggled and dealt a lot with injuries the past few years. So they buy out Cam Atkinson. He goes on to sign on a 1 year cheap deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Dennis Gurianov and Mark Stahl are not reoffered, and that's really about it until we get to Ryan Johansson. And it's really hard to say Johansson's even a subtraction because he was never really with the team. I mean, they technically did acquire him at the deadline in the Sean Walker trade. And now, of course, he never played. As soon as he was acquired, he was saying he was hurt and did not play the rest of the year. They put him on waivers. And then from there, we saw, now they're terminating his contract. Now, I know there's going to be a grievance from Johansson and from the agent, of course. That's already been made clear, as Kurt Overhart's already put a statement out confirming that. But, the only real outcome of that will be, from this perspective at least, will be whether or not there's any issues with their salary cap. Because obviously he comes with a $4 million cap hit, contract terminated, therefore it goes away. But if they lose the grievance, then obviously at that point they could have an additional cap hit kind of put back on there like we saw with the Blackhawks and Corey Perry. So, Johansson, it's, a bold move by them. Obviously, they're not buying the whole injury thing, but, at the same time, the player and the agent have a completely different perspective, and we'll see how it affects their salary cap later in the season. But theoretically, they should have a $4 million bump in cap here, which would help them be, more compliant and flexible throughout the year. So you're probably looking at, a lineup of probably playing Michkov on the top line. I suspect probably with Couturier, maybe Couturier, Michkov, Tyson Forster perhaps. Maybe play Konechny, Tippett with Frost. You got Lawton, Brink, Farabee perhaps, Cates, Paling, Hathaway. So not much difference. You're inserting Michkov, and that's about it. I mean, that's an internal piece that comes over. On the back end, you've got York and Sanheim, Sealer, Drysdale, Zamula, Ristolainen, Eric Johnson. It's the same crew. Fedotov, Sammy Erson. There's really no change. John Tortorella's still there, of course. Fedotov signs a little bit too much, I think. Konechny signs a little bit too much. They do a good job at the draft getting an extra asset for next year, which I'm fine with. Get Michkov over, and that's it. They didn't bring in anybody externally. So, we learned down the stretch, like I said, that this team was not good enough to be a playoff team, and it has the ways to go. I thought that they might have been able to find a way to at least make a few moves. Some of these other teams that were trying to find some more youth to mix in, the Flyers haven't been in on any of it. So to me, I think there's a lot of unfinished. It's just an uneventful offseason. It really doesn't give us a lot to talk about. I would also give Danny Briere, I'm going to give him a grade of a C, because he didn't really do anything that I'd say is horrible, really stupid or anything. But like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the Konechny contract, given where everything's at with the team. I think they gave too much money to Fedotov for very little games, and that didn't go great. But I think to get him to come over, they had already had to have promised him something. And I think, like I said, they had a lot of faith in him. They had to work hard with him to get him to come over. Obviously, there was the whole Russian issue. There was a lot going on there that was well out of their control. And I think, for him to want to come and play and stay, they had to make it worth his while. So I kind of get that, but it's still, kind of leaves them with more money against the cap than they really needed to. But I hope it works out for them in that sense. But overall, like I said, it's just very uneventful. They did a little bit of work at the trade deadline. Otherwise, they just internally signed players. They drafted a couple of guys, and that's it. Been a pretty quiet offseason for Danny Briere, Keith Jones and company there in Philadelphia. So I suspect this team really, I don't know if we can really say they're going to be better. And if they're not better, but you saw teams in their division get better. I think Washington get better. I think New Jersey get better. The Rangers are still really good. The Hurricanes are probably weakened a bit, but still better and stronger than these guys. So that's 4 teams right there. And then you got, Columbus, largely the same team. Nothing too crazy. They were busy. And moved Laine, but he missed so much time last year and wasn't the most productive while he was there that Columbus isn't drastically changed. And then you get Pittsburgh, who's added some youth and a little bit of mix there too. Pittsburgh's going to at the very least be the same, if not maybe a little better. So it's still, I think, going to be tough for the Flyers. The Islanders are the wild card team here. Again, sometimes we underestimate them, but they're getting older again. It's hard to imagine, but Sorokin, if he bounces back, it can be one of the top goalies in the league again. They'll be, in the middle of the pack of that division. Rather uneventful offseason for Philly. This will conclude the Eastern Conference. We'll now jump to the West. So stay tuned for the Western teams here coming up in the next day or two as we shift gears here in the GM Report Card series. So how would you grade the work of Danny Briere? Let me know in the comments so we can discuss it further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.